understand the skeletal system, we really kind of have to talk about another body system, the muscular system, because they work together. So we're going to build upon the skeletal system, start talking a little bit about muscles. So muscle it's a type of tissue. So a group of cells that works together to do a certain thing, that's a tissue. And muscle tissue basically has one job. It contracts and shortens, and then it can relax. That's what muscle tissue does. Contracts and relaxes. There's three main types of muscle tissue in the human body. Okay? And you may have learned about these in health. There's skeletal muscle, which is the muscle that you probably, if you think about muscle, you're probably thinking about the skeletal muscle. Okay? These are muscles that attach to our bones and allow our bones to move. And they are under our conscious and direct control. What do we call that? Yeah, they're voluntary. You see here the various muscles.
Mr. Duras?
Yeah.
If, like, let's say you could flex your pectoral muscles, would that be considered a voluntary muscle?
Yes.
Okay.
What are your
Any muscle that you can flex is a voluntary skeletal muscle. So that's many muscles are voluntary.
Is that a body without skin?
It's just an animation, but yeah, this is just showing the underlying muscle without the skin. All right. Another separate type of muscle tissue is cardiac muscle. And if you know, what does that mean? Cardiac. Holly?
I just lost it.
Okay, if you think cardiac arrest, a cardiologist, a doctor that helps with problems in this organ. What? Yeah, heart. Cardiac muscle is found in the heart. Okay. Our heart is basically a muscular pouch with several chambers
Why is he going so fast?
that contracts. And cardiac muscle is only found in the heart, and it's involuntary. You don't have to tell your heart, you don't have to think about it and tell your heart when to beat. Okay? It's involuntary.
Why did it go so fast?
I don't know.
Is that cardiac arrest?
Maybe. You have a question about cardiac muscle, Tommy?
No, I was just going to say.
You know the next one? Well, you just answer them. Who knows the third type of muscle tissue? Yeah? Smooth muscle. Smooth muscle tissue is found throughout various organs in our body. You know, in your intestines, in arteries. And these are involuntary. We don't have conscious control of these muscles. They just sort of work on their own without our brain telling them what to do. Right? In order to move food down through our stomach into our small intestine, muscles in our intestine contract to sort of squeeze that food along like toothpaste being squeezed out of the tube. But you don't have to think about that. You don't have to say, oh, this cheeseburger I chewed up, I better get that down a little bit lower in the small intestine, right? It just sort of happens on its own.
I'm just like, come on, buddy.
Now some muscles are sort of kind of in between, that we have voluntary control of sometimes if we want to, or if we don't, they're involuntary. What am I thinking of? The biggest example?
Bladder.
No, bladder, kind of. I was thinking actually of,
But I was gonna say sometimes your eye twitches. Okay?
yep, it just happened, that's a sort of a contraction there. I'm thinking of the diaphragm.
Uh-oh.
Because, you know, now that I've said it and you're thinking about it, you have to like tell yourself to breathe in and out, right? But then once you stop thinking about it, it's hard to do. Once somebody says it, then you're thinking about it. But once you stop thinking about it, you just breathe in and out on your own without any thought. But if you want to take a breath, you have conscious control over your diaphragm as well. And when you stop thinking about it, then your brain kicks in and just does it on its own. Kind of.
Is that why when you pass out you keep breathing?
Mhm.
Oh, there you go.
Because then your brain kicks in just automatically
It's automatic.
allows you to breathe. Okay.
I always thought of breathing as voluntary because sometimes when I just think, I don't breathe.
Yeah, sometimes like you're really concentrating on something, you may not, or like if you're working out and you're really trying to exert yourself, you may hold your breath, and you shouldn't. It's really not great for you to do that.
Sometimes when I have a wrestling match, I like am so focused that sometimes I forget to like breathe.
Yeah.
Mr. Gross,
Yes.
is it bad during hide and seek? I hold my breath until someone finds me.
Depends how long it takes a person to find it.
It's very long usually.
All right, so
you'd kill
if
yourself.
we look at this diagram, we can see the three muscle tissues: cardiac muscle in the heart, skeletal muscle. Did you guys learn the other name for skeletal muscle in health?
Yes, but I don't work.
We haven't even learned that.
Oh no.
I think we have.
Striated muscle.
Yeah.
It's not like these stripes. Yeah. Smooth muscle does not. All right, there are over 600 bones and muscles in the human body, and they have names just like all the bones have scientific names. They're often in Latin. But interesting thing is that muscles can contract and pull on your bones, but they don't push. Muscles cannot push, they can only pull. And so in order for many of our joints to function, we have muscles that are sort of in opposite pairs. Okay? An example of that, in order for you to bend, to pull your hand up towards your head, you have two muscles. What muscle pulls your hand up?
Your bicep?
Your bicep muscle, okay? That's called a flexor. So hopefully I don't break my shirt when I do this, but if when you make a muscle, when you pull your hand up, your bicep gets smaller. It gets shorter, I should say. So right now, my bicep is elongated and relaxed, okay? My bicep attaches to my tibia and fibula and to your humerus. When you are going to bend your arm upward, what you're doing is you're telling your bicep to get shorter. And when it gets shorter, it's pulling on the bones in your forearm and it brings them up. And now it's contracted. It's shorter. So, but I can't tell my bicep, like, push it forward. What does that?
The tricep.
The tricep muscle. So underneath your arm, okay, your tricep muscle, right now my tricep is relaxed and elongated. In order to pull my hand back down, you contract the tricep muscle, and that pulls on the bones in your forearm, and that brings your forearm back down. So your bicep contracts, then your tricep contracts, and that's what allows you to move your hand up and down. Same thing if you think about it, you have your quadriceps and your hamstring muscles, and they do the same thing at your knee joint. Now, other joints are a little more complex, like your shoulder joint. You need several muscles to move your shoulder in these various directions. But they often work with partners.
When you said tibia and fibula, did you mean that as in front
Oh,
of the arm or ulnar and radius?
No, I'm not ulnar radius.
Okay,
Thanks for
that's
catching
what
that. Yeah. Daniel?
So wait, how do we remember what the radius is? Like your thumb?
Thumb.
Does your hand feel like this? Like to us? Like
It doesn't
that?
matter. Your radius goes down here, so even if you flip your hand over, it's still on the thumb side. Okay? And you can feel it. You can feel that bone, and it rotates, it twists
That hurts
as
when
you
you hit it.
rotate your wrist.
You hit it, it hurts.
Well, if
really
you
bad.
go like this, like I think like radius on the right.
Yeah.
Like,
So
If you're using
exercise, when you exercise, if you go to the gym and work out and lift weights and use your muscles, okay, they adapt to the stress that you're putting on them. If you go to the gym, okay, and you lift some weights and you stress your muscles a little bit, okay, you tire them out, you make them work hard. Your muscles respond by adapting to that stress you're putting on them. And they become, what?
Stronger.
A little bit stronger, a little bit larger. And if you continually do that, that's how people can gain strength, okay? By exercising and working out and lifting those weights, you are constantly making your muscles adapt to higher and higher demands. And that's how working out helps you to get in better shape. Okay? So the size of muscles increases when you exercise because your doing small amounts of damage and stressing that muscle. And when it heals and repairs itself, it repairs itself even stronger.
Is that Mr.
There's-
Did you Photoshop?
Yeah, that's when Mr. RQ used to work out. Obviously, he stopped doing that long ago.
That's awesome.
Yeah, I know.
Looks like a bad guy.
Yeah. He was afraid of getting the spray tan in his eyes, so he covered up his face. That's why his face is pale compared to the rest of his body.
Where's his hand?
They're back behind his head.
It's listen up and down.
Yeah.
Where's his neck?
He doesn't really have one.
He was
When you're really
so
so, I don't even have to like this.
shoulders are too high.
Too much working out.
Yeah.
I don't know what happened to him, but obviously there's some changes. Yeah. He was pretty strong back in the day.
No, it's not.
All right.
Do you think you could have taken
All right. So, along with muscles, we often talk about tendons and ligaments together. And so we talked about this in our question of the day. Tendons connect the bones, okay, to muscle. So, like we were talking about, our bicep muscle, okay, it has to attach to our bones in order to pull on them. To pull on my forearm, my bicep attaches here to the bones of my forearm. Okay? And they're attached by a tendon. Now you can feel the tendon in your bicep. If you like halfway, bend your arm at the elbow just a little bit. Feel where your bicep muscle is. Follow it down to your forearm. And right in sort of the bend of your elbow, you can feel that hard. That's not a bone. Okay? Yeah, that's a tendon. That's where that muscle attaches. Okay? You can feel it's kind of flexible a little bit. It's
Kind of hurts when you touch it.
yeah.
Just a little bit.
So wait, is that?
So that attaches. So when your bicep contracts, it pulls on that tendon, which is attached to the bone, and that curls up your hand or brings your hand forward.
Why is it so like wiggly? Like,
I don't know. All right. The Achilles tendon is probably one you're familiar with. That's the one in the back of your heel. You can feel it back there. Tendons are very tough, fibrous tissue. They're very strong. They're made of protein.
my friend pulled her tendon.
Sometimes people can rupture their Achilles tendon. I think David Beckham did 2 years ago. Who else? I'm trying to think who just had an Achilles injury. Anyway, the Achilles tendon connects your calf muscle, which is back here, to this bone, this sort of spur of the heel. Okay, so when your calf muscle contracts, pulls on this tendon, okay, which pulls on that bone, which points your toe sort of down. And when you contract your calf muscle, okay, that pulls your toe,
It's like
sort of points your toe.
impossible to contract, not your toe button.
Yeah, Matt?
Is it possible for a tendon to snap?
Yeah, a tendon can rupture or break, can be severed. And what the problem is that if that is completely torn, that tendon, it means your muscle may be pulling, but it's not pulling on the bone, and so you lose movement. Okay? So you can't move. So even if you damage your Achilles tendon, your calf muscle will contract and it pulls on the tendon, but since the tendon is no longer attached to the bone, then your foot doesn't actually move.
Oh, okay.
I think the next one is a picture. If you don't like sort of the gory pictures, you may want to avoid it. Yeah.
I can't see it.
Oh
So
my
what you
God,
see-
seriously?
This is a doctor performing surgery on a person's Achilles tendon. So you can see the back of their foot, the back of their heel is opened up. Okay? You can see, and what the doctor is holding on to,
This is bone.
that's not bone. That's the tendon. It's
it.
white, very strong. Maybe the doctor's probably trying to reattach it to the heel, the bone in the heel way back here.
Mr. Duros, why did somebody take a picture of that?
No, I'm not. I hate you guys so
Yeah,
much.
Tommy?
You want to be an idiot.
Yeah, he probably is. CJ. Yeah, he would be unconscious probably.
What's next?
for surgery.
Really tiny.
All right, it's gone. So again, we see here where the muscles attach. They turn from muscle tissue into tendon, and that's where they attach to bone. Now ligaments are what connect bone to bone. Ligaments help stabilize our joints, help keep our skeleton together.
What connects muscles to muscles?
Muscles don't connect all their muscles because they're pulling on bones, so they connect to bones. So ligaments, you can see here, this shows the ligaments in your hand. Your hand is a complex organ, obviously, complex joint. And all these bones are all kind of bound together with these ligaments that attach everything and keep everything together. So if you look, this hand, right here, is this like a bone? Is there like a solid bone here?
No.
No. These finger bones continue all the way down to the wrist. Okay? So actually, in this part of your hand, there's no bone in between here in these fingers. And you could feel, so when you feel this, if you like hold your fingers back, there's these thick like cords. What do you think those are?
Those are the
They're not ligaments.
tendons, the finger.
Those are the tendons. Those attach to these finger bones, and they allow your fingers to move. Inside, what your knuckles are these ligaments that sort of hold the finger bones together. There's a whole bunch of them in your wrist to sort of keep everything in the right position and allow that movement. But here, there's spaces between these bones, like right in here in your hand.
I can move this knuckle from side to side.
Yeah? I don't know, there might be some loose
Is there something
tendons in
wrong?
there that give it a little more
Is there something
range of
wrong?
motion than normal. Nick?
Yeah, my brother broke my thumb when I was in 4th grade.
Oh yeah. So if you could injure your fingers in different ways, you could fracture actually the bone. Lots of times people dislocate fingers,
Okay.
where it comes out of its socket, and the doctor would just realign it and pop it back into place. Some other injuries. Okay.
Is there a wrong way of something?
All right. This is
Come on, Mr. Brewer.
you can see the various
People's hands, what's wrong with you, man?
tendons in there pulling on.
Wait, why did he open his handle?
I don't know where this came from.
Whoever freaking did that is a sick psychopath.
He cares about
All right.
science.
I think that's what I know.
Now, often, I'm not sure. I gotta find the story of it. I'm not sure. So, sprains are if you sprain your ankle. So probably many of you have sprained your ankle, right?
No.
No? Okay.
I broke it.
So what happened? Probably you were running, or maybe you were just walking.
Just in a hole.
May have been playing a sport. But if you sprain your ankle, usually like you jump and you land on it, but your ankle's kind of turned, or maybe you landed on something. And so your ankle kind of bends, but you keep going down. And so what's happening when you sprain ankles? You are stressing, okay? All those tendons that keep your ankle joint together, you're basically stretching them out. And you can tear some of them, okay? You could damage them. You could partially tear them. And that's what a sprain is, damage to the ligaments of a joint. Okay? And so here you see this person has sprained their ankle, okay? Which means some of those ligaments have been damaged. Now the severity of the strain depends on how bad they were damaged. Sometimes it's only a little bit damaged. Sometimes it's partially torn. Sometimes it can be fully torn. And so if you sprain your ankle, if it's not too bad, it'll heal back. It'll hurt for a while. It'll swell up a lot. May turn black and blue. May hurt to walk on. But over time, those ligaments will heal back. But for a while, until they've reached their original strength, you may be actually more likely to sprain it again because it lacks some stability. So you may start wearing a brace or having it taped up before you do your athletics. Matt?
I have a comment and then a question.
Okay.
When I was playing soccer, I reached my foot out to block a shot, and the ball hit my toe and it went back like that, and I went to a trainer and he said it was sprained, and so I wore a boot for a little while, and now my ankle can clip.
Oh yeah, sometimes you could do like damage that doesn't heal all the way. You may hear stuff. Sometimes you're always maybe more likely to sprain that joint again. So because when they heal, they don't heal ever completely back the way they originally were. There's some scar tissue and that may cause some of those.
Yeah, Matt. When I sprained my ankle, I dived in shallow water.
So by going backwards,
Oh.
and when like now I don't know if it's because I sprained it a few years ago. Now like when I can turn my ankle like around.
Oh, really?
Like going
Yeah,
like
you may
that.
have a
You can
different-
hear the crack.
Yeah.
Why is this?
I don't know, just once you sprain and once things heal, there's just a slight differences in your range of motion, how that joint works. Yeah?
You crack your knuckles. Why does that happen and what happens?
There's in all of those joint capsules like we saw there, sometimes air gets trapped in there, and when you move them in a certain way, it opens up like a gap and the air comes out and makes a popping noise. Okay? That's what's happening. You're releasing air from within your joints.
Or are you just pushing
No,
it
you're
together
just-
with the air?
No, you're putting
you're-
them in a position where the air can suddenly come out and be released and it makes a
and
pop.
what happens? Can your fingers get crooked? Or
Nope. People say that you can get arthritis, but that stuff is not true.
So nothing can happen. You can just
Tom?
See how on the toes there,
Yeah?
like, is the bone like ending right there where
The bone ends like in your foot. Like you can't see, when you look at this, you can see these, people's toes aren't actually this long.
Yeah.
Most of this is covered up with tissue and muscle, and your toes are just the last couple. Just like in your hands, this bone extends all the way down to here, but this part's covered up with connective tissue and muscle, so it doesn't look like my finger is actually that long, but it is. CJ?
There was a kid in our school a few years ago, a while ago actually.
Yep.
He moved to Florida,
Okay.
but he would crack his neck.
Yeah, I do
I
sometimes.
crack-
Or your back.
He would go like this.
I
would
twist
do
in your
that.
back.
I'm cracking back.
Oh, you mean like this?
It's the same principle as cracking your knuckles. There's air in between different areas and just get release it. Tanya?
Yeah, I use why can't they do this and then it
I don't know. All right, and so
Because you stand-
damage to an ankle or any other joint leads to swelling in the area. Blood flow there increases. So if you sprain in your ankle, the prescription they'll tell you to do is rice, right? Rest. So you try not to use it for a while. Ice. You ice it. That reduces the swelling. What's the C? Anybody know? Compression. You wrap it to force some of that fluid out of there. That also helps keep the swelling down. And E, elevate. You keep it raised so that fluid doesn't collect there. All that stuff helps to reduce the swelling, to make it less painful and to let the healing begin.
So you don't, when you said rice, it like stands for that.
It's,
is it-
yes, it has nothing to do with
Because they
actual
never
rice.
said
Yeah, I think you're right.
I was a little bit confused
Yeah.
because they never told me to eat rice.
All right, here you see a person that has sprained their ankle, and you can see how swollen
Are those like
this area is. Yeah.
Why do you usually get the swell?
It's sort of the body's response to any damage. It's always swelling, sending more blood there, and that can help destroy an infection or something. It's your body's adaptation to sort of an injury, this swelling.
So the swell is like
It's blood and body.
So it's all fluid, it gets trapped,
Yeah.
and that's why it's all.
All right, a couple other things. Tendon problems. Sometimes tendons can be damaged, and so a strain. Okay, so a sprain is damage to what? Ligaments. A strain is the word we usually use for damage to a tendon. Sometimes the tendon can be torn off the bone. Okay, like with this Achilles tendon's been torn here. That's what they're probably doing surgery in that picture to help repair that rupture. Okay? Tendonitis is inflammation in a tendon. So if you ever heard of somebody having tendonitis, that area where the tendon connects the muscle to the bone can become inflamed, can get fluid, and can be sore and painful.
That's why I have it's called Sears.
Severs, yeah, that happens especially when people are growing, like my daughter had it too. Trigger finger is when a tendon gets sort of locked, and like a person with trigger finger, their finger sort of locks, and they have to kind of open it back up, and it doesn't.
Stop it!
Mr. DeRoss,
Yes.
how do you
Okay,
paralyze
hold on.
yourself?
Alright, so my dad has a finger and it's like
So does my dad. My dad has a finger too.
that is it's stuck like right here, and he can't move it up. And if like I try to move it up, he says it hurts really, really
Oh,
bad. And
Probably
he can't like move it
stop
out of
trying
his
to
So
move
he's
Oh, yeah.
stuck like that?
Yeah.
So he can't
My
do
dad
that?
fell off.
Well, it's like right here.
Yeah, Haley.
There's this thing where you like this and you go like that.
Yeah.
So you lock your tendon and then only this is up.
Yeah. Yeah.
Mr. Duran,
When I
Hold on.
worked for you,
See
my
that?
dad fell off a ledge one time. Yeah. You guys think?
Yeah. All right. Go ahead.
Anyways, in his fingers, because a rock fell on him, his fingers, like two of them are like this, and one one's like this, and like he can't push them, but because there's metal rods and everything.
Yeah. And sometimes they
And
use.
so I can just kind of like scare people with them, be like, "How is my dad's hand?"
Okay. Ned.
how does someone become
Paralyzed.
If
Um,
they
It's usually damage to their spinal cord. So
Cords?
because your brain sends messages to all your body parts and tells them when to move, if you damage your spinal cord, the message your brain is sending to your legs telling them to move gets to a block.